Welcome to episode 183 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. Hi, I'm your host, Catherine Eardley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. The Resilient Retail Club is my membership group and mastermind for product business owners. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. And today we're joined on the podcast by Ruth Sturdy, who is the founder of Color Chronicles and also one of our mastermind participants. Ruth's going to share with us her business story and how the business has evolved and developed over the years.
Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Eardley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing: breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch, and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business.
Hi, Ruth. Welcome to the podcast. Do you want to start by introducing yourself and your business?
Yes. Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having me. So my name's Ruth Sturdy, and my business is Color Chronicles. I launched in 2018 when my daughter was 3, and I wanted to find a record book that she had an input into as well as me. And I couldn't find one, and I thought I'm going to make one and it'd be my business. And that's how it all started.
Oh, fantastic. So that was the book of you.
The Book of You, so Record of Childhood. So I wanted a book that I was going to fill out because I love writing things down. I always have done. And I was doing a childhood record book for her. And I just thought she was so chatty at age 3 and had so much to say that I ended up handwriting questions out and asking her. And the questions were just brilliant. They were funny. You couldn't predict what she was going to say. And it was really worth noting down. So I thought there must be a book out there. So I looked and looked. I really looked. And there wasn't one. I thought, right, I'm going to make one. I'm going to make it inclusive. There's going to be no judgments, no assumptions on family or anything like that. Yeah, that's how the Book of You was born.
So that was your first product and remains the bestseller to this day.
Yeah, by a country mile. I have brought out 2 other books, but You is just out. Probably about 90% of my sales is the Book of You.
Wow. And so you have also then the baby book.
The baby book of You, which again, I wanted it to be really non-judgy because I think lots of baby books are quite triggering for new mums. It tells you your baby should be doing something at a time where maybe it's not, and then you think, oh no, it says it should be rolling over or it can be quite upsetting. So I just wanted it to be really, well, for everybody, really non-judgy, no assumptions. It just asks for first for this month. And it doesn't assume there's a mum and a dad and 2 sets of grandparents, so it doesn't matter how the baby entered the world or how the family's made up. So the book's been really popular with same-sex couples, solo parents, adopted families, which is really important to me, actually. It's the whole ethos of the business.
Everything behind it. And then you recently added, or more recently, I should say, you've got the Book of Me and You.
Yes. Confusing, I know. I didn't think about it. The Book of Me and You. So me is an adult and you is still a child. It's got grandparents in mind, but it's for any adult-child relationship. I wanted to bring out a book for grandparents, but I had a friend of mine who was really poorly and she'd asked me to help her write letters to her kids when the time came, which was awful. But I thought actually for them, they'd want to know the little things, the time she felt most up, her favorite pair of shoes, her favorite time of day, a recipe, all the little things that would, that sort of make up who she was for them to be able to remember her. So I bought the Book of Me and You, and me is the adult. So you fill it out together. So you have different topics. So I don't know, activities, so pastimes, hobbies, school. What else is there? Things like favorite time of day, favorite seasons, clothing, holidays, all those things that just make up who you are. So it's 2/3 for the adult to fill out and then a third sort of to fill out with the child. And then it becomes the child's to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would the idea be that the child asks asks the adult then the questions?
So there's prompts in there, and at the end of each section, it says something you'd like to ask me, something I'd like to ask you. So you get a chance to
Mm.
sort of have conversations you maybe wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a really nice chance to sit and connect. And I've done one with my daughter, and I like the fact that, you know, the worst should happen, that she'll have that and knows all about me, about when I was little, and, she's got
Yes.
it there to keep and look back on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's really hard to underestimate. You can't overestimate, I should say, how important those things are. And I think, in my life, I think about people that I've lost, that if I'd had, like you say, all those things, that those like small details which seem completely trivial in the grand scheme of things, but actually if you don't know a relative, or you would like to know more about someone or have that record, then it's hugely important, because that's ultimately what makes us who we are, right? Those little
Yeah,
details.
exactly. I've got one recipe of my granny's, and it's her beautiful old fashioned handwriting, and, just the pen on paper and the fact that she touched it. And it's really special. It's just something about pen on paper and being able to touch something that somebody's touched. So, that's why I know in the digital age and everything's lovely and it's great, but just to have that tangible, book, I think it's quite special.
Yeah, and I'm sure it becomes one of the most valuable things that people own.
Oh, yeah. People say it goes from being a notebook to something they'd save in a fire.
I
Yeah.
believe it. Yeah, yeah. Especially, as you say, though, in a situation like your friends, where it's just so difficult and you really don't know what to say or do. If you've got something that she can give her kids.
Yeah. And also when you're
Yeah.
in that situation, it's where do you start? Where do you start with a
Mm,
letter on your wedding day? Or, or it's such a lot. But actually having a book that's got fun prompts, easy prompts, things that make you talk, I think it's very comforting to know that you've given them you've given them the memories.
yeah. Yeah. And without everything having to be this sort of big life changing advice,
Yeah,
it can just
exactly.
be something as simple
Yeah.
as, yeah, a recipe or something
Yeah.
like that.
Films to watch, music to listen to. So all the little things.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. It's interesting you touched on the digital age, because I suppose that is, well, what's going to be one of my questions around how important do you think this is in a digital age to have something physically written? Do you think it becomes more important?
I do. I do. Even so with my children's books, they love looking back. They love looking back at their handprints. They love looking back at the way they drew things. Like when my daughter was 4, she was all about belly buttons and eyelashes. So she'd do the family portrait. And it's just, and then when she was 5, it evolved a bit more, and then 6. So you just see the progression in one very easy once a year thing to do, to sit down and do together. You write your name, do her first signatures in there. I think it's important, even for my own handwriting, to look back and see what I've written and remember. And you think you won't forget these things, but you do.
You
And actually, it's
absolutely
nice to
will.
remind you. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think it all just blends together, doesn't it? That's how I feel. My children are 13 and 16 now. And it does get to the point where, was that when they were 4, when they were 5? Or sometimes, when I have friends with younger children, and it'll be a birthday, and I think, what would a 6-year-old girl want? What did my daughter like at that
yeah.
time? And you think, oh, I'll never forget this stuff, but it's so easy to, and as it all kind
So
of rush
easy.
by.
Yeah, especially
So,
since I haven't always got an idea of what time anything is.
that's so true. And what was your background before you started the business? Did you ever think you would end up running your own business?
So I knew I wanted my own business. So I used to do a national sales manager role for an electrical manufacturer, which sounds really boring, but it was really fun. And I loved the whole world. But if you're not in it, it is boring. But it's not sustainable whilst you've got children to be out on the road all the time. And I knew I had back-to-back maternity leaves, and then didn't go back again. And I knew I wanted to do something for myself. And then I was actually looking at opening up a soft play cafe in Clapham, which would have been fantastic. But then just trying to find a place or whatever, it just didn't work out. Then I thought actually it'd be good to have a product business, but I had no idea what that product would be. And it
Mm.
was wanting it. It was trying to find this product. And then it was like a light bulb moment of, this doesn't exist. My
Mhm.
husband, "Oh, but people aren't like you write everything down." And I said, "I think people are like me." I said, "I think people like to have the memories." And it's
And
just
how
fun
many
to do.
thousands of books have you sold now?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I know. Bless him. If I'm sure I helped the idea, I was like, no, I don't think you did. So I helped with the colours. I was like, yes, you helped with the colours.
So you started in 2018, and I feel like we must have met not that long after. I feel like we met near the 2018 and 2019.
Yeah.
So how has it evolved since the early days?
So when I first
Business.
started, so I put an order in for 3,000 books. So I just went, right, let's go for it. And they all got delivered at home. My husband was like, can you got any idea what 3,000 books looks like? I was like, no. And they were everywhere. So they turned out I had a whole wall in our spare room. We had to move a sofa. And I said, well, this is how businesses start, right? And then I moved to a fulfillment, moved to a lockup, got to a lockup that was huge. And I moved off the kitchen table and took over the biggest bedroom, just had a rejig around at home. Then I got a bigger lockup, which was another big day. But the biggest move was moving to a fulfillment center. So we moved house, we moved from Clapham to Southeast London, 2022. And I moved to the fulfillment center there, which has honestly been life-changing. It's just so good knowing that the orders are just sent out. I'm not having to do that side of things. I can work on the business. I can take proper time off. That's been the biggest thing that's changed.
So that
Yeah.
was still four years in. So
Yeah.
the first 4 years you were sending out every single order.
Every single order. Every
And
single order.
what got to the point where you felt like this has to stop? I have to switch.
I had to drive home from a holiday once because I'd taken a load of books with me and then my printer and everything, so I could still send orders out. And I didn't have the right one, so I had to drive home, send out a load of orders. I was only from Dorset, but still, and I had to do it, because I couldn't bear turning it off. But actually, lockdown was fantastic for me because I could do all the orders. I could, just go straight to the post office every day with my bags to the front of the queue. Hi. So yeah, so that was the timing worked out really well, funny enough.
So it was that holiday then where you just thought, you know what, there's got to be a better way of doing this.
Got to be right away. Yeah. I knew because I could never work on the business. I was just always getting the orders out. That was always the priority. So it's just freed up so much time. Yeah, it's really been life changing.
And was this the first fulfillment center that you went with, or did you have to interview a few?
First one I went with, I did look at a few, and these guys, they're great. They're great at what they do. When I've had to change the business slightly, they said they'd do the gift wrapping. And I'd get some pictures of it with masking tape wrapped. And I was like, okay, I might have that. Because I'd always do gift wrapping and handwritten cards, and that had to go. So that was a shame, but that had to go. And that's okay. It's evolved and there's still boxes they can go in. But it's just the step up from being the really small business to the next stage.
Absolutely. And do you think that then the fulfillment center has been one of the main ways that you've been able to grow without having a big team? Because when I talk to people, quite often what they'll say to me is, I want to grow the business. I want it to be bigger. I don't want to necessarily have a big team. I want it to be quite lean, if you like. And I feel like you're in a place now where that is basically your business model. It is pretty lean. And do you think the fulfillment's kind of the biggest piece of that puzzle? And are there other pieces?
Fulfillment is the biggest piece of that puzzle. Also, I do have someone fabulous doing my digital marketing. So I think knowing what you're capable of and knowing what you can learn. Like I love learning and I love doing things myself, but there's things that I can't do myself. And the digital marketing side of things, I was so lucky to find the guy that I use, and he's just fantastic. And I speak to him in a few weeks and he's brilliant. He's like a voice of reason, very sensible, looks at things completely differently. And I've got a brilliant accountant as well. And she keeps all my numbers safe and, lets me know what's going on. So I think it's about knowing what you can't do yourself and then doing what you can do yourself and not being afraid to do it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's also working out that you can't do everything. Pinterest, for example, I tried that one and I was just like, no. So being okay with not getting those orders because I haven't got the time to do 20 pins a day or whatever it is that you need to do. And I don't think it's worth paying for. So working out what it's worth paying for and what's going to give you the most return, and also what you're willing to learn and want to do yourself.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
so true. It's just being really realistic, as you said, about where your strengths lie. And also, I often say this to people, it's thinking about the bits that you can't outsource. You have to be the creative direction of the business. You have to think about the strategy and the direction. And it's working out what else other people can do for you when they can't do this main piece. You're the only one who can drive the business and get it to where it's got to. One question that I quite often get asked by people who are in this growing stage is when you get to that sort of chicken and egg place where you think, I know if I outsourced, say, for example, digital marketing, I know if I outsource it, it could potentially bring me more money, but I don't feel like I have the money right now to outsource it. Do you see what I mean? So did you have that point, or did you just have to take the plunge and say, I'm just going to trust
Yeah.
that this is going to pay itself back?
So I think give yourself a 3-month trial, go all out for 3 months, but get advice from an expert, because it's very easy to try and do it yourself and have, which I did do probably a year before I did it properly, and realizing I couldn't do it. And also just surround yourself by people who are in the same position. Your club's brilliant for that. So it's not about knowing how to do it yourself, but it's about knowing who to ask to find the right person to get it done. And that's invaluable. That really is invaluable. And and then you're able to get somebody that has already been vetted, if you like, and
Yeah.
trusted. The best thing to do. But I would say, 3-month trial. So work out what you can afford to spend and then give it a really good try. Make sure you've got really good content for your ads. That's really important. So you're really happy with it. And again, get advice, get people to look at it. What would you change? Have a look at similar ads running. Which ads do you click on? And then just try it. Yeah, there's no harm in trying.
Yeah, I know, that's so true. I think that's a real mind block people get into, is that this sort of like they get feeling stuck. But I like that. You just have to 3 months. Can you make it work in 3 months? Which is
Yeah.
sometimes tricky with digital marketing because, especially in that first 3 months, you're learning a lot. But I think it is so true about word of mouth. And we do that obviously in the club and in the mastermind as well. I know that's a big piece of it. It's just being around other people going through something similar and
Yeah.
grappling with the same issues, because I don't know if you find this, but I know certainly I hear from a lot of people who've been going, say, for example, you've been going for, will be 6 years this year. And there is a point at which a lot of the business advice tends to be more basic or more beginner focused.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes what you need is just a bit of reassurance that everyone's going through, or just to curb the loneliness, really, because you are on your own. You are in your own head as well. So having different people to ask, and the advice you get is always fantastic. And it's always nice to give advice as well, and to people who are at the same stage as you.
To pool resources and pool knowledge.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is called the Resilient Retail Game Plan. So can you tell me about a time in your business where you've had to be resilient and how you got through it?
Well, I was thinking about this actually. And I think it's little thing after little thing. It's like a constant being resilient, It's like, they've got the baby book in the book of you, or it's the wrong color, or it's a delayed deliveries, or that stock's not there. So it's little things. And I think you do become more resilient. So things that at first would have absolutely floored me, now I'm a bit calmer about it. You realize, well, what can you do? It's not the end of the world. It's all fixable. And having the resilience is fantastic. I mean, it's such a good name for your company, for your brand, because being resilient is so needed. If I wasn't getting sales or things weren't happening, I would be really upset about it, really worried about it. But you do build up this resilience. And if you could give that to somebody when they first start out, that would be the best gift you could give them.
That's so true. Yeah, I like what you said there. It's like things that would have floored you. You do not get thick skinned. That's not quite the right word, but there is a point at which you realize that nobody's died.
Yeah, exactly. It's all very grey. I went away with another mum to Centre Parks. We took the children, and I got a phone call, and I thought, I'm not going to take my laptop. I'm just going to really enjoy myself. And I had a phone call saying, it said there were 50 pink books on the shelf. Actually, there's none. And we've got 20 orders. So I was like, oh, wonderful. So, you know, having to, it's just a slog. And so, right, you just need to get this done. Sit down, just get it done. Just, tackle it all and it's fine. But yeah, don't panic, Mr. Roman, as they say.
Yeah, I remember when I worked in the bigger retailers and, there would always be something that would be this huge disaster, something didn't show up for the launch or some dress that was in all of the ad campaigns didn't make it to the stores because the warehouse sent them to the wrong place, or somebody in the team one time accidentally keyed in the store number instead of the quantity and sent like 2,000 lever arches to the wrong store, and they just sent a van to go and collect them at great expense. And it does feel like life and death. And I had one manager who used to say, I'm not being funny, but we're not saving lives here.
Yeah, exactly.
It was even harder when it's your own business though, isn't it? Because it feels like that so much of the time. Like it is very personal. It's your business. It's your baby.
Yeah, it is personal. It feels personal. It does feel personal. And it's quite addictive as well. The more you do, the more that gets done, so you have to really strike a balance. And that's another thing at first, is wanting to be working all the time. And as you get a few years down the line, you realize it's okay to be off when you're off, and when you're working, make sure you're really working.
Yeah. More work when you work and less work when you're not at work.
Exactly.
That's my mantra for this year.
Yeah. Do it right this time.
So what's next for Color Chronicles?
So I've got so many book ideas going around in my head, but it's such a big thing to launch. It's a big commitment, and also just trying to get them out there as well. And then the confusion that comes in. But I think actually the next thing I'd like to do is take the Book of You and the Baby Book of You overseas. That would be the next thing I'd like to do. And then I'd also like to get the Book of Me and You a bit more well known in the UK. So that's what's next for this year anyway. Yeah.
This year. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's really great to have a chance to sit down and really talk things through and get the whole story from start to where we are now. And do you want to tell everyone about where they can find out more about your business?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm a bit of a fangirl because I listen to the podcast all the time. And so you can find me on Instagram at color.chronicles, or my website is colorchronicles.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have a moment to rate and review the podcast in Apple Podcasts, that would be absolutely fantastic. And also, if you rate the podcast within the Spotify app, then that also helps me get the podcast out there in front of more people. Why not hop over to Instagram, let me know what you thought about today's episode. And of course, if you want to know more about the Mastermind, which will be opening up again in March, then drop me an email, Catherine at Resilient Retail Club, or a DM on Instagram, and let's talk.